Good morning, and welcome to the Terry Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Harina Somasundaram, and I'm a Senior ILA Leadership Fellow studying Computer Engineering. The Institute for Leadership Advancement in the Terry College of Business is an undergraduate certificate program that develops values-based, impact-driven leaders. ILA instills leadership capabilities, promotes self-development, and improves communication, teamwork, innovation, and adaptability in a changing global environment. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Bonney Shuman, co-founder of Barcode Systems in 1983, which later became Stratix Corporation. She served as president and chief executive officer until she sold the company in 2011. Stratix Corporation helped hundreds of end users, distributors, and other organizations gain a competitive edge by utilizing barcoding and other forms of automatic data capture. During her tenure at Stratix, Ms. Shuman served as the president of AIM USA, the Automatic Data Capture Trade Association, was a board member of Women in Packaging, and served on the Georgia Women's Business Council. Ms. Shuman is a graduate from the University of Georgia's Terry College of Business, where she majored in finance. She serves as a trustee of the UGA Foundation and is an immediate past president of the University of Georgia Alumni Association. She and her husband, Billy, met at UGA. They have 2 children, Billy Jr. and Mary Ellen. Ms. Shuman continues to impact her community by serving on the Executive Committee of Committees of Coastal Georgia Foundation and is the treasurer of Christ Church, Frederica. It goes without saying that we are lucky to have this chance to hear Ms. Shuman this morning. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Bonney Shuman.
Thank you, Harina. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tarleton Woodson. I'm a senior Leonard Leadership Scholar here at UGA who is studying Management Information Systems. I'm truly honored today to facilitate this conversation with Ms. Bonney Shuman. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, without further ado, while preparing for this interview, I watched and thoroughly enjoyed your 2009 speech on the work-life balance. What advice do you have for students who want to make the most out of their short time here at UGA?
Oh boy. I think part of my message to that talk, or part of the fundamental of that, was that I think balance is an incredibly difficult standard to hold yourself to. Because when I visualize balance, I look at something like a seesaw or scales, and those images are really, really temporary. So suggesting that you can achieve balance and that be how you live your life every day, I think is an incredibly impossible standard. So part of my message was maybe balance shouldn't be what you strive to achieve, although it's a lovely thing, but I think it's so temporary. I think it's a better standard to say, how can I juggle? And that's what I used to use as my way on how I felt good, because good jugglers drop balls sometimes, or whatever it is they're juggling, but they drop things and they just pick it up and keep going. And I think if you use that different standard on how you can be successful and happy and have a good life, I think it's a different terminology to use, and I think it might serve you well. When you go to this next chapter of work and you are trying to be successful in the workplace and trying to maintain relationships, family, friends, whatever it is, trying to take care of yourself and have good health and do other things that are important to you. If it's something faith-related or if it's volunteer-related, whatever, there are going to be a lot of demands on your time. And to balance all of those is going to be really probably impossible. But how you can juggle those and one day have a really great day at work and go home and maybe cook dinner, maybe a healthy dinner, maybe. And then stay in touch with things or take care of things that are important to you. Those are going to require that you juggle a lot of things. So to that message, that's my first advice on what you do for that next chapter. While you're here, the same thing applies. I imagine most of y'all are juggling classes that are difficult, maybe projects. A lot of y'all probably work outside of what you're doing with class, and all those require juggling. And some days you're going to juggle well, and some days you're not. But don't let it get you down. Drop that ball, and the next day say, okay, I'm going to be a better juggler today. And some things you're going to leave on the ground, and you're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to check on a friend today, or I'm not going to cook a healthy meal. I'm going to pick something up, but let me try to minimize how bad that is. So just decide when you're going to juggle well and what you're going to juggle, and the things that you don't beat yourself up. Just figure out how you can do it. But while you're here, juggle the things that are important. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have here, because there are a lot of them, but they're almost overwhelming. When you look at how many clubs there are and how many societies there are and how many organizations, that's a lot to juggle. So just try to be a good juggler.
That's a great answer. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
One of the things I love.
First question down, Dalton.
Oh, we got it.
Okay, next.
On the way.
Okay.
One of the things I love about going to the first publicly chartered university in the U.S. is all of the traditions we share here at UGA. Your home of St. Simon's Island actually happens to be the location of one of my personal favorite of those traditions, to tell you the truth.
Some people would debate that, yes, yeah.
So I'd like to know, looking back during your time in college, what are some of the college experiences or memories that are most meaningful for you today?
Definitely not Frat Beach.
Yeah.
That's a good takeaway. Some of my best memories from UGA. I transferred into Georgia as a sophomore. So part of my strategy, I went through recruitment really just as a means to meet people, because I felt like it would be a little more difficult not coming in as a freshman and have the opportunity to live on a freshman dorm and do all that sort of thing. So I had to pay for it myself, so I thought I probably really won't pledge anything, because that's an expense that may be a little lofty. But I ended up doing just that. So I pledged a sorority, and certainly having that sense of community, I know it's not for everybody, but it did give me an instant network of friends that were incredibly important to my time here. So whatever your community is, I think at a university that's so much larger than it was when I was here, but for me, that was a game changer. It also was significant I ended up serving as president for 2 years while I was here, and the leadership development that afforded me was really great. I had some great female mentors, which was important. And because I transferred in, we were on the quarter system then, so I was a little behind in my hours. I was transferred from a school that was on semester program. So when I came in, I was a little behind, and I worked every summer, so I didn't take summer classes. So I got to stay an extra quarter, and that means I graduated in December of 1980. And does that ring a bell for anybody as to what that might mean? That was my last quarter here. So we went to every football game. We went to the national championship. 22 of us stayed in a room on the Marriott on Canal Street. That was certainly memorable. I got the bathtub. That was a good choice.
Oh my gosh.
For a sleeping spot, in case you're wondering. Yeah. So anyway, certainly football was an important part, but the friendships I made here, primarily through my sorority, were lifelong. We travel together every year. We do a beach trip. We do a Christmas party. It's pretty special. So the network you have here is powerful, and don't miss out on making those connections.
Go Dogs.
Yes, you got it. Herschel was a freshman then, in case y'all didn't remember.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
The Institute for Leadership Advancement does a great job helping us develop strong social skills for the professional world. From the student perspective, over the next few years, a lot of the people in the room, myself included, will be meeting a lot of important people throughout the next few years. What have you learned throughout your career in regards to making the best possible first impression?
Well, it certainly goes without saying you have one opportunity to make that first impression. So I think the basics you all know. Probably shouldn't have your alarm set. That's a good one on your phone. It really is as fundamental as being prepared when you show up, looking like you made an effort. Your hair shouldn't be wet. It should be combed, ideally. It should look like you didn't sleep in the clothes in which you're wearing. I know y'all have learned all that. So that's the easy part that y'all have heard so many times that you're tuning me out right now. The other part is what you should be working on today in terms of talking to strangers, having conversations with strangers, feeling confident in what you talk about. When we met today, the first day, you very quickly gave me a touch point about you've met some people that know me, which was very, it was well done, and I appreciate that. So it is, but that, I'm sure, Carlton's over here going, oh yeah, he made me say that. No, that didn't, I'm sure you couldn't do that the very first time you met a stranger. So, and a lot of y'all probably haven't practiced that. I had the great fortune of serving as a mentor this past fall to a young lady that was fairly new here on campus. And when we first met, it was a little awkward, and over time it got better. So on our second or third meeting, one of the items she wanted, she said, I want you to help me to be able to interview. And I said, okay, let's practice on your elevator speech. Tell me about yourself. And the first time she told me about herself, she really couldn't. And after we practiced it 3 or 4 times, so it's as simple as just starting on, well, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? And a lot of people can't do that comfortably. So try to then cater that into a work situation and being able to talk about yourself and what you think's relevant besides your major. If you're going for an interview, why are you interested in this company? Is it just because you certainly don't want to say, I'm just darn anxious to get a paycheck. Hire me. You want to have a little, but that takes practice. That takes, you just got to do it over and over. So force yourself to go to places where you don't automatically have a friend. Talk to strangers, practice talking about yourself, practice presenting yourself so that then when you are making that first impression, it is comfortable because you've done it several times, and it takes several times to talk like it, and you're going to sound awkward the first few times you do it, but don't give up, keep doing it.
Note taken. Note taken.
Well done, you're already way up there. So, yeah,
come on.
Tell me more.
So,
it was great, it really was good. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about football. From the classroom to the locker room, UGA does a really great job at showing the community what a competitive advantage can provide. With that in mind, what are some important skills that you think our generation of new professionals may be lacking, and what can we do here at UGA to kind of change that around?
I would love it if y'all had a rule that you couldn't use your phone when you were walking on campus and or when you go into a classroom.
Good luck.
Yeah. I'm thinking big. One of the things I really, really worry about is this generation's ability to communicate. And obviously, we're in a group here. Many of y'all are part of this institute, and you're learning these leadership skills which involve communication. But I oftentimes get the opportunity, which is great fun, to go speak to a classroom. Everyone comes to the classroom, 99% of them have a phone in their hand. They stare at their phone until class starts, and then they look up. They don't necessarily engage, they kind of do a little bit, and then as soon as they're done, they look back at their phone, walk out of the room, and then they walk on campus. And when you look on campus, everybody's looking at their phone until they go to the next thing, until they look at their phone, until they might put it down for a temporary distraction. The phone attachment is incredibly troubling to me, because what I think it's preventing is real relationship development. So much of what y'all do is on your phone. I was hell-bent on teaching my children to talk to people. And so, and they were beginning to, the phone wasn't quite as relevant years ago, but they go, well, can I just text them? I'm like, no, you cannot text a person to ask a personal favor or question. You must pick up the phone and identify yourself, tell who you are, and then ask it. It's a whole different, think about all the miscommunication you've had in your life through a bad text or a bad picture or a bad, the list goes on. I worry about y'all being able to talk, for me to develop a relationship with you. When you get into the workplace, there are some jobs that you will be able to do completely on a phone, and I'm sad about that. the majority of satisfaction you're going to get from a job well done, you generally are going to have to work with someone to accomplish something. And to do that means relationship development. And relationship development does not happen via text. It just does not. One of the great mentors in my life was a gentleman that since passed away, but it's an author who came to my company several times and spoke, and he was so motivational. His name is Louis Timberlake, and he said, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." That's a fundamental from relationship. Think about it, and think about what that means. Like I may think you have the greatest ideals in the world, but if I don't know that you care about us succeeding together, it's not going to matter. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's a fundamental to relationship development. And I worry that we might not be doing enough of it in the world today. You get it a little bit in classes where you're doing project work together, but how much of that project work together do you do via text? And how much do you really sit down and talk about a common problem and how we're going to solve it together? So I worry about dependence on technology and less on relationships. So work on that one, relationship development. Talk to people. Maybe talk to someone in your class, uninitiated. Say hi. Maybe say hi to someone, maybe today, when you're walking on campus, don't look at your phone and say hi to someone. How about that? It's troubling, isn't it? It's scary, very scary. Y'all can do it. Everybody that has their earbuds right there, they're like one's in their phone. How many have an earplug in their ear right now? No one, but I see a couple hanging. Y'all are tempted, aren't you? No. Okay.
That's funny.
True. It's true.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah.
All right.
I use my phone a lot. Yeah.
Start monitoring your screen time.
Yeah.
Chop, chop.
I'll have to put a limit on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's some good advice. Yeah.
I'll take you up on it.
Thank you. Well done. I feel accomplished already. All right.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, what do you have for me next?
Let's see. Some of what I consider to be the greatest opportunities here at the University of Georgia are centered around servant leadership. And to be honest, one of the things I find truly admirable about you, not only your career but your life path, is how much of your time and energy you give back not only to your local community around the coastal islands, but also to the UGA community. I'd like to know, what have you learned or personally gained from being a servant leader yourself?
Well, first of all, there's no greater feeling in the world than feeling like you've been able to help someone or make a difference in someone or something. So when I'm given the opportunity to give back to UGA, it's not if, it's when I can do it. So I truly believe I'm in the place I'm in now. I was very fortunate to retire early, and I feel like I was given that gift so that I could then now give of my time and treasures, whatever they may be, to impact the things that I care about, and UGA is certainly at the top of that list. What have I learned? I don't even know where to begin. I mean, that's the satisfaction of seeing institutions improve is fabulous. Every time I come to campus and have the opportunity to talk to students, obviously starting with you here today, it's just amazing. The caliber of what's happening here, the opportunities y'all are getting. I mean, that's what keeps me going. It's like, okay, what can we do next? What can we offer next? I was very fortunate to give the opportunity to help start the Women's Business Institute here and the Sea Island Scholars Program, easy for me to say, which has just been great to see women come into this program and what they gain from a weekend of mentoring and the like. I'm participating in the mentoring program here, which has been great to meet with a young woman that I'm serving as a mentor and see her gain the confidence and feel like I had helped with that. There's just no greater feeling. So I'm able to do that in some other organizations as well, which is great. I'm real involved in our church, and we focus on women and children's charities and do a lot of work in the community, so that's equally rewarding. So I'm very fortunate. So.
It's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah.
I look forward to someday having the assets to, maybe make some donations myself. We'll see.
I think you should. Start at UGA. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Don't get your hopes up too fast, Dean Harris. In ILA, we hold 5 core values: responsibility, stewardship, excellence, integrity, and purpose. I'd like to know what core values have been most central around your life and career.
Probably started with hard work. I was one of 4 children. My dad worked really hard to provide us opportunities that he didn't have growing up, nor did my mom. Neither one of my parents were able to. They went to college for a short time, but unfortunately neither one had the opportunity to graduate. So they were absolutely committed that I have 3 brothers and myself, that we would all graduate from college and that they would ride us until we did. And that took a great deal of sacrifice. And I will never, ever take that for granted as to what they sacrificed. And it was a lot to give us a lot of opportunity. But their flip from that was, as a result of that, they absolutely expected us to give 110%. So one of my core beliefs there is that I look to see that equally effort. It's effort. It's hard work and effort. So I had to start with that for sure. Then as I kind of transitioned out of that and to a situation where I was in the workplace and then created a workplace, it was respect. And that being an overriding fundamental is that must be it. I was in a situation where I don't feel like I got that in my first workplace. So when I had the ability to create a workplace, that's what we're going to have number one. And I think those are probably the 2 biggest, but certainly part of the workplace we created was also some servant leadership. We had what we called casual for a cause, where we had events where you could dress down. We used to dress up at work every day, but on Fridays you could donate part of your paycheck to be able to go casual, and then we allowed our employees to pick charities that we would support every quarter. So we instilled a culture of philanthropy, which I thought was important. We allowed people personal days to pursue their own philanthropic activities. So that culture was part of what we created as well, and I think that's an important part of who I am and what I want to create as well. Absolutely.
I'm curious, as a follow-up, were your values ever challenged throughout your career? And if so, how did you respond to that?
Certainly, yeah, a couple of times. On the respect factor, for sure, I was in a workplace environment where that was not, particularly as a female, that was not valued, which is honestly a great gift, because that's what motivated me to go start this business. So the pivot is what I did, and I'm grateful for the fact that I was not respected, and I said, okay, well, that's good, because now I'm going to go someplace where I can create an environment where that will be one of our core values. So yes, that was challenged. Was it challenged on other? The hard work was never challenged. Integrity was certainly challenged, and I'm very proud that we made a decision to not do business with an organization that didn't value that. It's a company that I will not name. You could probably figure it out. But you don't have to do business with companies that you don't think value the same things that you do. And so we certainly selected not to do that. So I think those values will be, that's just a fact of life. And it's just what can you learn from the experience and take away and evaluate and say, I'm not going to be in that situation again. I'm not going to do that again. And having the confidence to say that's okay is an important thing to develop, and it just takes, it's like a callus, you just got to keep working on it, and then it gets easier and easier.
Earlier you mentioned a couple different times about mentors throughout your life, specifically while you were in college. And I have to say, throughout my own college experience, one of the things I've personally been most grateful for have been the mentors that have invested in me, not only in my growth, but also my development. I'm wondering, today, do you still have any people that you consider mentors in your life, and how have they affected you?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it started even some of when I was in college and had female mentors through my sorority leadership development. I still stay in touch with those women today. At the time when I was in college, I thought they were 80, and they were really probably 26. And so, yes, they're still alive. I still, starting that age, I didn't really have many more. I mean, that was really the core of what I used as mentors. But when I got into the workplace, I didn't have them in my first job. That was absolutely a shortfall. I think that's important when you're looking at your next chapter, is that one of your first things you try to put in place if you don't have it in place already, be it in that workplace environment or somewhere else. I didn't have it, and that certainly led to part of that demise as well, and it was not part of the infrastructure there, and I just didn't have anybody, and although I went to these women to kind of talk about my issues, it didn't correlate, didn't quite transfer to the workplace. So my real next stage of mentors for me was once we started our business, and I had to reach out to friends we'd made at UGA and I had to ask a lot of questions to finally find the right people. But I'm still, from a business perspective, the gentleman that was our financial kind of advisor, accountant, who gave us so much wisdom and luckily also a UGA grad, was incredibly valuable, and I stay in touch with him today. Our legal counsel, who was a lawyer that's also from UGA Law, again, just a fabulous resource for us, is still a resource for me today. And I've always used my church counsel, my priest, as just a touching point. But other mentors may not have been mentors, but may have been sounding points, and that's friends and family that I've used as support. So however you use it, I just encourage you to have a mentor of some shape. I didn't have, sadly, enough female mentors on the workplace side, but it didn't really matter as long as I felt like I was getting the wisdom that I needed. The issues I was dealing with as an entrepreneur weren't because I was a female entrepreneur, so I tried to take that label off and really just focus on the fact that, okay, I now have some business challenges, help. And so that's where, from a financial standpoint and from a legal standpoint, we were able to get good wisdom, and very, very grateful for that.
Thank you. With an understanding of the past and our eyes on the future, both the Athens community and much broader, the general business world, have to do a much better job at working on how we appreciate the benefits of diversity. Being a businesswoman, besides the lack of respect you experienced, I'm curious what unique challenges you have faced in your career and what advice you have for members of other members of underrepresented communities that might be in the audience today.
Well, I think a big part of it, and I've asked this several times, different panels I've asked about how I dealt with being a woman in a very male-dominated field. And when we started our business in '83, it was absolutely the norm that when I'd go into a meeting, and this lasted for 10, 15 years, I would be the only female in the room. And I had never really taken notice of that until someone asked a question, how do you deal with it? I think the first place you can start is not by having a label. It's almost like I referenced earlier. I didn't have challenges because I was a female entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur. So don't spend a lot of time on the label part. Yes, I was from that part of the world, but that's not what I used as my calling card. It's not what I used as an excuse to not be prepared or to be intimidated. So when I went in a room, and I think I've referenced this, some of y'all may have heard me say it before, I think part of it was because of the way I was brought up. My father was with a company, was with Texaco, and in that world, in the 60s and 70s, to get ahead, you moved every year, every 2 years. That was just part of what you did. And so we moved a lot. And so I went to a different school in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, sixth grade, and eighth grade. So by the time I started high school, it was my sixth school. So I was used to, the first day of school, walking into a classroom and seeing a classroom of 30 new, whatever, bodies. And I never looked at it as, okay, there are 18, there are 18 women in here. You know, I just looked at 18 humans, or 30 humans. when I have 3 brothers, and so there were always 20 guys at our house when they'd come home after football practice or this or that and the other. And I just walk into the house and I didn't look at them to see if there was a female there. I was used to being around men was one of, I think, the issues that helped me. But then also, I was used to entering a room, like a new classroom, and saying, okay, here we go. So I never really went into a sales call situation where there'd be 9 men around the room and think, oh my gosh, you're 9 men, I'm the only woman. I just went into, there are 9 people that I've got to learn to develop a relationship with. There are 9 people that I need to talk to about, in my case, if I'm making a sales call or if I'm telling them about my company. So I need to be confident in what I'm doing, knowledgeable about what I'm doing. So I never really had the female label, and it's kind of complicated. I think it's a combination of all those reasons as to why I didn't. I never saw myself as a female entrepreneur. I was doing what I was doing. So I think the greatest advice, if you are in an underrepresented, number one is to go to more environments so that you're not uncomfortable. If you walk into a room and suddenly see whatever you see and you feel as an outlier, put yourself in more of those situations so you don't feel that way. And then, get more comfortable so that you don't label yourself that way. I think the labeling starts with you. In some cases, not always. In some cases, if you're more environment, certainly if you go to a situation and you don't feel like you're being supported or respected, remember my key word, respected there, then figure out if there's another place for you to go. So you've got to know what your barometers are. But I think in a lot of cases, it is you feeling comfortable about who you are and what you're doing. I was so committed to growing this business that I wasn't going to let anything stop me. And it wasn't a room full of 9 men. It was these 9 people might have had, certainly were going to have an impact on whether or not they bought our product or did business with us, but it wasn't because of 9 men. I wasn't letting that, so I wasn't labeling them either. So I think we've got to be careful on how we label others. Start by not labeling yourself and don't label others. Does that help?
Absolutely.
I'm a rambler. I told Tarleton earlier, I'm a rambler, so I hope I answer your questions effectively.
Well, your rambled answer might be better than I could have done directly.
Okay. Oh,
so.
Here he goes again.
Okay.
I love this. Yeah, okay, next.
That makes 2 of us.
Oh, good.
Just 3 years after your graduation, you co-founded Barcode Systems, which later grew to become Stratix Corporation. Throughout that process, what do you consider to have been one of the greatest challenges that you faced?
Oh, we could do a lot of these sessions. The greatest. There are so many great challenges. We had every typical cash flow situation from day 1 to day 21 that you can have. We started as just a reseller of a barcode. So the barcode that you see on a product, like on this, that was put on that product because someone had to buy that actual barcode image and incorporate it in the graphics. So in the early days, there were only 2 companies in the US that produced this product, so we would buy it from a company in New York and resell it. And that sounds simple, it sounds good, we can make a lot of money, it's a high margin product, that's great, until the company that you sell it to doesn't pay you. Because we certainly wanted to pay the company from whom we bought it. So cash flow, even in the early days, was a struggle, and we had a couple, again, a company that I won't name, but you could probably figure it out, a large company that just pays in a really long time, and they think because you should be so flattered that you do business with them, that it should be okay. So there were 2 or 3 times that I'd had to call and cry and beg them to pay our bills so that we could turn around, and that's what it took. So cash flow was one of our biggest challenges for sure. We certainly had an issue with equity one time that was a very painful. We naively awarded equity to an employee that then left, and we had not documented what that meant and what happened. That was very 2.5 years painful. My business partner died in 2007. I mean, I don't think I need to say much more than that. And the time and place, you say, how can I equate death to cash flow? And they're not relevant. So I can probably start there. But there were times when cash flow felt like death because, and it's not as big a deal when you're the only employee and you're like, okay, I can eat ramen noodles for 2 more weeks. But then when you have cash flow, the next phase of your business, and you're saying, okay, I'm not sure we can make payroll, then you're going, this really does hurt. And where do we start? And can we go to 3 employees and ask them if they can defer? I mean, the joys, they're great highs for being an entrepreneur, and they're great lows. And the joys certainly outweigh the lows, but all the challenges, we could go on and on and on. They're all great at the time. You think they could be no worse, but you get through them. So.
And you certainly have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
From building your career around business technology, you must have seen the industry go through countless changes and developments. In your opinion, what made you and your team able to successfully drive through change? And what can the young professionals in the room do to prepare themselves to also succeed in a dynamic corporate world?
Certainly, it goes back to my relationship talk, because we were communicators, we were analyzers, we would sit at the conference room table, have our Monday morning strategy session. Okay, what's going on? What are sales where we need them to be? If they're not, what can we do? What can we impact? We use the word pivoting. What are we going to do to pivot quickly? Are we going to give this product another X number of weeks or months or whatever to develop? Or is it time for us to pivot and try something else? And that meant not only communicating as a management team, but also communicating with our customers and really finding out what they wanted, what they needed, what we felt like we could fill as a void. So having relationships on the customer side is something that we took great pride in, and that just takes time and work. But it's communication on both sides. So I think it's being aware of what's working and what's not, being afraid to ask tough questions. So if we would lose a deal, it's going to a customer and saying, hey, could you have coffee with me? Could I buy you lunch so you can tell me, is there anything I could have done differently to have won that business? Or is there anything that we didn't do well to execute on a prior project? And learning from mistakes, and not being afraid when you think something's really not working. Okay, it's time for us to pivot. We've got to draw a line in the sand, continue going down this path. It's not working, we're not successful. What else can be? And that just takes communication on a management team standpoint, and then communication with your customer base so they can understand what you can do, what you're not doing well, and doing it better, learning from your mistakes.
Simple as that, right?
Yeah. Because you got to talk. Yeah.
My last question for you today.
Okay, all right.
You mentioned the great quote from one of your personal mentors: people won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, good recall. Well done. Yeah. Oh.
You're gassing me up today. You're gassing me up. One of my personal mentors once told me a quote that was also really influential, and he told me that unless I'm fully willing to accept my failures, I would never be able to reach my full potential. And that had a profound effect on me. I was wondering, is there a moment in your career where you were able to turn a failure into an opportunity for growth?
Oh gosh, tons. Absolutely. It kind of speaks to what I was just talking about. It's from trying to sell some business, and someone makes a decision to use another supplier, and it's going to the customer and saying, what could have changed? Could anything? Sometimes things are out of your control. Sometimes it's as simple, if they want to buy from somebody because of someone else they know, and you can't really impact that. But if it's something that we did not do well enough, that we didn't present enough our capabilities, we weren't creative enough on, well, we could supply this product, and then if it breaks, we could get another one back out in the field. If we weren't creative enough on what our offerings were, then we need to know that, so that the next time we go and are trying to win a deal, that we have to be more creative. So I can go down the whole list. Those types of opportunities really did lead to our growth, because we weren't afraid to go in and ask for honest feedback on what can we do better. And that really drove us to the example I talked earlier about how to pivot. Oh, okay, you know what? We've been doing it this way. We didn't realize we could probably put somebody out in the field and they could be going to these stores and doing this, and no one's going to be able to compete with that because we're right here and we can do that. You know, we just lost a business to a company from North Carolina. We're right here in this company's backyard. We can really make that a differentiator. So without going and getting that feedback about why we lost the deal, the next time we went, without getting that, without asking tough questions in that regard, we wouldn't have been able to then spring that into a whole new solution, a whole new way of looking at something. But it's asking for constructive feedback. You know, tell me why we lost. Tell me what was bad. And a lot of people are afraid to do that and don't. It goes back to communication again. Yeah. No such thing as bad news. You know, let's deal with it. Yeah. So.
It ties right back to the first thing you shared with us today. When you drop a ball, just keep on juggling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or let it maybe lay down there for a day. It's not going to probably go anywhere. Yeah. Be all right.
Well, now we actually have a little bit of time to open up to the audience for some questions. Yeah, go ahead, Max.
Hi, my name is Max Kitchen, and I'm a Leonard Leadership Scholar. And my question for you is, if you could sum up leadership into one word or phrase, what would it be?
That's a tough one. I really think leadership is very multidimensional. So if I look back at my life, I've had leaders that have had all different capabilities and things that drew me to them, but probably the one word for me is inspirational. I think every leader has inspired me in some way to learn something new or to do something different or to take a whole new look at things. So I think the core at all of that, to me, is inspirational.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Grady News Source reporter Gigi Quan, and I have a question about since March is the Women History Month, so being a woman, businesswoman, and in this industry, what do you think what Women History Month means to you?
Gosh, I'm going to give a true confession. I didn't know it was Women's History Month. You know what? Probably because it's been invented since I was in school. I think that makes me excited because I like the fact that they're featuring women in business. So I think that's inspirational. And I think that if any women can be out there telling their story and telling what they've done, someone asked me earlier today, who were my career inspirers or idols, if you will. And I said, the really only thing I could look up to was teaching. And not that that's a bad thing, because we need great teachers. But there was no other woman other than a school nurse, and that was not appealing at all to me. There were really no other women models. So when I was growing up, I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll teach, because my mother was a stay-at-home mom. For which I'm very grateful, but I didn't have any other women leaders or idols or role models in my life. So if we're featuring them for a whole month, I say that's pretty killer. I didn't have one to which to idolize, but now I'll work on some on the way home. I'll start listening to some podcasts and stuff and get smarter.
Any other questions? Oh, please.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Colin Gothrop. I'm a Leonard Leadership Scholar, and I'm majoring in marketing. Much like you, I'm one of 4 children. I'm the oldest, and there's 3 brothers, and one of the youngest is my sister. What could you say to me to help support her as she grows up, and as a woman, and as an older brother, how can I help her along, through her pathway in life?
Oh, what a great question. What a nice older brother.
Yeah.
Get you some of that.
Wow.
That's well done. I love that. Just don't let her view herself as being the only female, as being anything that can hold her back. She's got every opportunity that you and your brothers have. And don't allow her to feel labeled as being held back because she is a female. So encourage her to pursue whatever her passions are, to get out there and experience them, and to feel good about what it is that she is interested in. So just encourage her. Don't ever let her feel shortchanged. She's got every opportunity you do, and then some.
Fantastic.
Because she's got an older brother looking out for her. Yeah, it's good.
On behalf of the Institute for Leadership Advancement and Terry Leadership Speaker Series, we would like to thank Ms. Shuman for taking the time to be with us today.
That's my joy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Well, that's all. Thank you guys so much for being here.
We want to thank all of you for attending today. As you leave, please let us know who you were by filling out the Who Are You cards and leaving them in the baskets as you leave the auditorium. We look forward to seeing you at next year's series. Thank you.